Are we live? Hello, 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 hello. Diva in the house rocking with you. All right, check this out. We are, today I want to go over contract law, and we're going to talk about contract law, why it's important, some of the things that go along with contract law, you know, some of the steps and the things to remember and understand about contract law. I'm going to go over the difference between public and private, public versus private, and we're going to go over the steps to legal remedy and the court of records. All right. So hope you all are doing well. We are in January 1st, and you're all gonna have a good year. You're gonna make it a good year. All right, we're gonna make this a good year. Last year was a good year for me as I wait for a few people to come on. Mi amigos en Argentina, hola. Ahora yo hablar en inglés. All right. Necesito practicar más. Entonces yo puedo hablar en español para vos, pero ahora no es listo. Diva is not listo. So otra vez, pero for me, my people in Estados Unidos, Enrique, one of my Brazilian amigos. For my people in Estados Unidos, United States, we are going to go over this legal stuff. Hello, as we get ready to do this thing. So I'm going to go right into it, dive into it. Contract law. By the way, I have included a link that's in the description here. This is a link for my hierarchy of laws, all right? The hierarchy of laws are very important even before I get into the contract law, and I'm going to tell you why. If you get a chance for the two people here who are going to pull that up, and what you're going to see with the hierarchy of laws is the order in which laws are in their importance, all right? Because there is a hierarchy of laws, and one of the problems is that we are not understanding the highest of laws, and because of that, we keep trying to find remedy, but we never find remedy because the top laws are all screwed up. So I'm going to take a look at that very briefly. Please check the link and pull down that hierarchy of law chart. I'm going to go over it now, just a little bit briefly, because I can go so deep into this. You know, we spend books of days on this. So as I let that pull up, I'm going to go over this hierarchy of law chart, and then we can, as that comes up, we can I can go over that. All right, so first of all, I need to say that the highest law that we tend to ignore is the universal laws. Now, when you hear the term or the phrase, ignorance of the law is no excuse, when we're talking about laws, the ignorance that we have the highest of when it comes to laws is the universal laws. Now, universal laws basically deal with whatever energy you put out must come back. A lot of people call it, and my thing is those are laws. That's all it is. And if you don't respect those laws and honor those laws when you're putting out energies, you're not going to understand why you're getting certain things back. I'm going to say this briefly, and then I'm going to move on. A lot of people will come to me with legal issues, and they're not understand. They want to think they are victims. All right. One of the things about universal laws is it tells us there are no victims. There are no victims. So if you're not understanding that, and you keep thinking you're a victim, when really all of the energy that you're receiving is energy that you put out, then you're going to keep going in circles, and you're going to find it very difficult to receive the remedy that you're looking for. So I have other videos up about universal laws and all of that. So, you know, please, and if you don't know them, pull down the universal laws, do research on, just do a search on universal laws and pull them down. There's a list of 12, there's a list of 36, I think. There's a list of the 7 Hermetic principles. All of them are good. Pull them down, know them, learn them. Natural laws is next, and that deals with the vessels that, or the objects that manifest in the 3rd dimension. So basically, what is the laws, like of your body, these vessels? You know, women have certain laws that are associated with their vessel, as males do. You know, cats, the vessel of a cat has a certain law associated with it. So natural laws, that's what that deals with. Laws of maxim are very important as well. They come directly from the Bible. And I'm going in order here because I won't go, I'm going to hit this list real quick because it's important to understand where contract law stands. Laws of maxim come directly from the Bible. A lot of people, you know, want to diss the Bible and and I understand that. You know, we've been told so many lies. Religion has lied to us, but the Bible is something different from religion, and it is not. But it's not the Word of God, the perfect Word of God. It is not. That book has the scriptures have been tampered with. I mean, we know that. But there's a lot of truth in them that couldn't be hidden by man as he tampered with the scriptures coming from the woman. All right, so that's the laws of maxim. Know them, learn them, look them up. Again, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Sovereign, all right? A sovereign is basically a being that's born under God. I have human being here, but it's really all beings. They have rights. Sovereign, you know, have rights that come from the law of maxim, which include the right to protect yourself, the right to travel this planet without need of government ID, you know, all types of rights that we forget or we're not aware of because we don't even understand what the laws of maxims are. And so sovereign is a being that is self-governed, and they stand under the laws of God as well as under the universal laws, and they respect them. All right, and so I won't get it. I can go, I go so deep into that, but I'll let it go. Contract law is where we are today. We are talking about contract law. Now, contract law are a set of laws which sovereigns worldwide adhere to in commerce. All right, so we're talking about an offer plus acceptance equals contract. Now, as I say that, you know, we have to understand what an offer is, what an acceptance is, and, you know, then understand how to maneuver when we have created these contracts, because sometimes, a lot of times we're creating contracts and we don't have any understanding that we're doing that. Now, this is more of an advanced subject that I'm speaking on. A lot of people are not going to, you know, some of this is going to be a little bit difficult for those who haven't studied it. But I'm going to try to make it as clear as possible and then give you some information so that you can go and look up for those who are who have not studied this and maybe don't understand some of the things, some of the concepts I'm going to be covering. Let's see here. Now, on this, I'm still going down this hierarchy of laws because I'm going to read this real quick, because under contract law, we have treaties. Under treaties, we have constitution. Under constitution, we have corporations. All right, so let's understand what position that is with respect to the United States. All right, so you've got the United States Constitution, and it sits under contract law. You've got the corporation United States, which sits under the Constitution. And then you have federal codes. Notice I said codes. There are no federal laws. They're codes. Codes, statutes, and ordinances sit under the Constitution. They sit under the corporation. And here's the thing about a corporation cannot create laws. Laws are created by science. And so when we're talking about the Constitution, and then when we're talking about rather all of these code, statutes, and ordinances, these things that they're calling laws, they're not laws. They are what they sit beneath the Constitution. So you got to understand that, because when someone tells you, oh, you were speeding and you broke a law, well, it's not a law because it's not in the Constitution. All right, it's a code, statute, or ordinance. And so you got to understand that the corporation created that. When we're dealing with the federal codes, let's understand that these federal codes are basically contract laws that are codified. They're written down, and they are, the federal codes are, which this includes UCC laws as well, UCC codes rather. The federal codes are really, they are, like I said, they're codified, and they are the same as what we have in contract law, except for they are for corporations. They are for the dead fictitious entities. That's a contract law for dead fictitious entities, basically is what it is. So federal codes and UCCs, which they're together, those are, again, they sit beneath the corporation. They sit beneath the Constitution. Underneath the federal codes, we got your police corporations and agencies, you know, your FBI and all of them. And then underneath that, you have citizens. All right, so if you're calling yourself a citizen, you see where you sit. But if you, again, are looking at this chart and we see sovereign, sovereign sits right under God. So whichever one you choose to be, if you want to be a sovereign or if you want to be a citizen, that's up to you. But if we're talking about contract law, you're going to have to know how to stand as a sovereign so that you can affect contract law. All right, what is that law? Once again, that is where you have your sovereigns that are contracting with each other in commerce. All right, so now we talked about offer acceptance contract. Offer acceptance contract. What is an offer? Now, what I want to go into real quick right now, because as I explain contract law, this is going to help you to understand. We're going to go into public versus private. And the best way for me to explain this to you is to give you an example of private practices versus public practice, as we have, a lot of us have seen in our daily lives. All right, so when, for example, a mortgage company sends you a notice, or any company, any corporation, but we're going to use a mortgage company, and they say, all right, Benita, Miss Benita, you owe us $12,000 rent for, you know, this amount of period. That is a contract. All right, a contract is also a law. So you got to understand, as a sovereign, when you write a contract, you're creating a law, a set of laws, and your laws stand above any constitution, any other corporation. Again, when you look at this hierarchy chart, you see what contract law sits. It sits above treaties, it sits above constitutions and corporations. Your law, when you sit down and write a letter, that is a law. And your law is a contract. It is binding. Whatever you say in it is law. And so as a sovereign, when you understand this, then you start to see your power in your pen, in writing. All right. So when the mortgage company sends you a letter and they're saying, Miss Benita, you owe us $12,000, they have sent you a contract. You just think it's a letter, but it's really a private contract. All right. Now, what I'm going to walk you through, there are 4 steps to this. Write this down. Okay. 4 steps. Step 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. 1 is a private process. 2 is a private process. 3 is a private process. 4 is a public process. All right. I'm going to go through them again so that you're understanding what's going on, because this is how all of these corporations do us every day, and we don't understand. We are constantly in private processes when they're contracting with us, And then we don't understand that, and they make it public, and then we get everything taken away from us, and we don't understand what just happened. So, all right, when the corporation, the mortgage company sends you that public, that notice, that private notice, it's a letter. You think it's a letter, but it's really a contract, and it's a private contract, and you get it and you don't respond. Your lack of response is an acceptance. They offered to you, I'm offering you that you owe me $12,000 for your rent. All right. And I'm just throwing that number out there. And you don't say anything, you have accepted. That is an acceptance. Now, if you write them back and say, no, I give you 1,000. How about 1,000? And then they've got to respond back. So then they've kept that going. But if you don't accept, you have acquiesced. Basically, you have said, okay, I agree to this. Now, let's understand in contract law, one of the rules of thumb is in contract law, you give 10 days for a response. So when the mortgage company sends you their letter, you have 10 days to respond. Now, let's talk about where those 10 days come from. It's 3 days to send it for the document to be received. Another 3 days to prepare a response. Another 3 days to send it back. That's 9 days. Plus 1 day if there's a Sunday in there. All right. So that's where the 10 days come from. Some people give 20, some people give 30, but the minimum that we deal with as far as a rule of thumb in contract law is 10 days. All right. And that's being in honor and giving the person the opportunity to respond. So now what ends up happening is once the mortgage company said that and you don't respond within 10 days, you have said legally, you have said, okay, I owe you $12,000. And so now they're going to send you process 2, which is another private process. They're going to send you a notice of fault, which it doesn't look like a notice of fault. It just looks like a letter. That letter is going to say, we sent you a letter earlier, 10 days ago telling you that you owe us $12,000. And so now we're going to file this in public court if you don't respond. And you don't respond. You got another 10 days to respond. They've sent you a notice of fault. And now you haven't responded. You acquiesced twice. So now after the next 10 days go by, after that second private process, now the third private process comes in where they're sending you a notice telling you you need to show up in court on such and such a day because they're gonna take your property. All right. Again, now all of this has a whole bunch of illegal things going on with it. And I won't get into that on this one. I'm just basically talking about the processes that are used, the difference between private and public, so that we can understand what's really going on. But you have gotten that third notice. That third notice is called a notice of default. And that's basically where you have defaulted and you have agreed to everything because you have acquiesced by not responding. You have accepted. They've given you an offer, you've accepted, and there's a contract, and now you're going to have to pay on it. So now the fourth step is to go into public court. Now, what is the purpose that for a mortgage company, for example, to use to go into public court? Well, they want to go into public court so that they can get access to what I call the Army. And what is the Army? Basically, the Army consists of the sheriff, because the sheriff deals with land and other properties. And so the sheriff is going to be the one that handles or steps in with these matters. So what the mortgage company has done is once they've taken your case into public court, it's on record now, and now they're going to get the sheriff so that they can come to your house with the U-Haul truck or whatever they're going to do, and they're going to shut it down. They're going to take the property over. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the process that's always being used, whether it's a mortgage, whether it's a car note. It could be even traffic tickets. I'm going to go over that in a second. But all of that is step 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, and it's done in such a way where you're not understanding that these letters that the mortgage company was sending you, for example, they were private processes. And this is how contract law is being done with us all the time, and we just don't get it because we just think, oh, it's a notice and I'm just not going to answer. But you don't understand, you have power by creating your own contracts as well. So once we understand that, you know, in contract law and how to create our own contract. Now, what I'm not going to go over on this one is actually the writing of the contract, because there's some, you know, contract writing courses that go in depth that are needed to do that. But you just need to know the basics of what's going on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Step 1, 2, 3, all private processes. Number 4 is a public process, and that is to get and also to get the what I call the army, so that you can do what you need to do. And guess what? You can do these exact same things against them. We never do it. The problem is we never follow through. Some of us might get to the point where we go through step 1. Some of us might even make it to step 3, but we never go on to the final process. And that is where we falter, because the mortgage company ain't gonna stop until they go through step 4 and take your property. And so we have that same ability. And once we get into understanding how this is done, then we can develop our powers. Now, let me go through, because I talked about the traffic ticket. The traffic ticket is the same steps. However, they do it underhandedly. So let's talk about what they actually do with the traffic ticket. Now, when the cop comes up to you, he is going to give you an offer. Well, I offer you this contract. He's not going to say it like this, but this is basically what's being said. I'm offering you a contract, and when you know that you've broken our ordinances. They're not going to say ordinance. He's going to say law. And so they're going to give you a ticket, and he's going to ask you to sign it. Well, as soon as you sign it, you're creating a contract. Now, let me tell you another thing, because I told you a contract is a lot of laws. It is also a court. It's a court. So just like when the mortgage company sent you those letters that really were contracts, that were really laws, it was also a court. And see, we're not understanding that court takes place every time you present a contract. So when that cop gives you that ticket, he's presenting you with a court. Court is taking place right there on the street. So as soon as you sign it, you have made an agreement. You've made a contract, which is a court, which is a set of laws that you've agreed to abide by. All right, so now what ends up happening is he's going to say, well, you can show up in court in 28 to 30 some days, whatever they give you. Now, let's go back to the standards of contract law. Remember, you have 10 days to respond. Otherwise, you have acquiesced. You have agreed to everything in that contract. Well, if you don't respond until you get to what they call, quote unquote, public court, you've already agreed to the whole contract. You've already said, okay, I'm guilty of this ticket. Whatever the fine is, and you think you got to go into court and argue, but once you got to understand, once you get to public court, that means somebody didn't handle their business on the private side. All right. So you're going to ask me, well, what you supposed to do when they give you a ticket? All right. All right. Now, let me finish this and I'll tell you exactly what you do. Now, when they give you the ticket, again, you have 10 days to respond. If you don't respond within 10 days, again, you have accepted that offer. By the time you show up into court, again, you've already pled guilty. Now, when you get a ticket, first of all, now, a lot of us are not comfortable with telling the cop, I'm not going to sign because we're afraid or whatever. I understand. There are certain things you can do, for example, making sure, because, you know, it's illegal for a cop to threaten you to sign a contract. Let me state this about the laws of Maxim once again. These are known as God's laws, or Maxim, the laws of Maxim, and they come directly from the Bible. And I'm going to tell you, I know this for myself, every court on the planet, if they have you swearing on the Bible and to some God, whatever it is, they respect the laws of Maxim. And you need to learn them and learn how to use them to your advantage, because yes, it is illegal for anybody to try to force a contract on you. It is against the law, the laws of Maxim. Understand, you need to start respecting these higher laws. And yeah, it is illegal. That is one of the laws of Maxim, and that's something you can stand on. It is, and there's several of them that you can stand on as well. But they can't threaten to take you to jail if you don't sign it, and all this other stuff. But if you fear or what have you, you can sign it. You could put the signature in a box. You could also put under duress, right under there, under duress, under threat, because any kind of contract that is signed under threat or coercion of any type, it is now a contract that is null and void. And so you can stand on that. So because nobody can force you to contract. Once again, these are not laws that these people are putting on you. They are statutes and ordinances. They're contracts. And again, understand where contract law stands. Understand where sovereign stands. And so when you understand that these are corporations and they sit underneath you and they can't force you to contract, and then you start walking like the sovereign that you are, then you understand how to prepare your own contracts. All right. Okay. So now that's what, when you're presented with those contracts, what you would do is you would create your own contract. All right. Again, that's just a corporation that gave you a contract. Now you have the ability as a sovereign to send a contract back to them. Now, in my contracts, because there are certain things that I have set up, and I understand who I am, my contracts are going to basically say you don't have the right. First of all, I wouldn't be signing it, so I wouldn't even need to send the contract. But if something like that happened, it would basically be stating that, first of all, my corporation, which is that all capital letter name. Some of you all are familiar with the term straw man. My corporation is a copyrighted trademark name, because I have registered it. And only you do not have the permission to do commerce with my name. So anyone who puts my name on any kind of contract without my consent, they're copyright infringing. Copyright infringing is a high fine, $20,000 to $50,000. So you're putting my corporation name on a contract that is my corporation name that is trademarked on a contract without my permission. You've copyright infringed on that name. So that's one of the things that would be in there. The other thing would be, again, if there was any coercion, there's a fine for that. The other thing would be the cop pulled me over and took up my time. Well, my time is $1,000 a minute. Whatever I say it is, that's contract law. And so those are the things that I would be putting in my contract. in my contract, it would be saying this case needs to be removed from the account of my registered trademark name. And if it's not, that's going to be an additional fine. And then again, that's my contract. And I'm going to give them 10 days to respond. And if they don't respond, what's happened? They've acquiesced. So guess what? That contract that I sent in, that court that I sent in, because the cop gave you a court right there on the street. But when I sent in that court, that's my private process 1. And then I'm going to send in another one, if they haven't removed it. If they're smart, they're going to remove that. But if not, we're going to send in private process 2. And then we're going to do a notice of default, which is private process 3. And then we're going to take it into court, which is a public process. And so that's how that goes with respect to step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. In getting remedy in a legal situation. So the difference between public and private, and you're going to hear a lot of people say, don't mix public and private. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because when we're talking about Federal Reserve notes, for example, Federal Reserve notes, which are called dollars or money, those are public instruments. When we're dealing on the private side, when we deal with private financial instruments, we're talking more about money funds and other securities that we use on the private side. I'm not going to go deep into that because that gets detailed or entailed. So, but understanding that public, again, these processes, when somebody's sending you a letter, that's private. All right, when you go into a business and you're passing Federal Reserve notes and you're talking, and that's public. But when we're wanting to affect some serious finances on the public side, you're going to use it. For me, when I deal with my people, I'm telling them we're going old school. We want to put everything in writing. We want to have everything documented, so that the paper trail is clear about what happened. So it's not going to be a situation where, somebody's word is this and that and that. No, we got it in writing. We got it documented. And I won't, there's processes to go through when you're dealing with sending off your courts. When I say courts, or your letters, there's processes that we deal with to make sure that we've made it clear that we followed contract law and the procedures that go along with contract law. Now, court of records. Let's go over that. What is a court of records? Now, a court of records is very big, because when you're going, what you got to understand is when you're going into their courts, you're going to create your own court and be inside of their court. And so you do that with a court of records. All right. What is a court of records? Because you hear the term, you think, okay, it's going to be recorded. All the courts are recorded. Okay. Here's the thing about a court of records, and you create your own court. And once again, remember, when you write a letter, that's a court. When you put your rules in it and what you want specifically, that is a court. You got to remember, your court stands above all of their courts, their corporations, their constitutions, their treaties, all of it. Your court is the highest. And so this is why you have to, understanding this part is very powerful. Now, court of records. It's got 5 factors that go along with it, all right? It's got the power to fine or jail for contempt, all right? It keeps a record of all the proceedings. The proceedings according to common law, the proceedings are the proceedings are according to common law, which means there's no statutes, no penal codes. And really, here's the thing about court of records: you can make your own laws. When you create a court, meaning when you file a document and you saying, I'm going to create a public court. When you file that document on public record, that court is what you say it is. This is how powerful contract law and a court of records is. So you can create your own laws. It could be the Constitution that you go by. It could be the Magna Carta. It could be your own laws. And so you have that right to do that. Now, here's the big thing about a court of records and understanding why you have no power or control when you are a defendant. But when you are the plaintiff, you have all power, because here's the big thing. A tribunal is independent of the magistrate. All judges are magistrate. What am I talking about? Okay. A magistrate or a judge can't rule. Only if you have a jury. Look, if a jury is there, then the jury is what makes the verdict, but you don't have to have a jury. So if the judge can't rule, then it's all about what you say. So you have full control as the plaintiff, because the judge has no ruling. So unless I don't want to say crazy, but unless you decide you want to have a jury in your tribunal, then you are the ones who's going to be making all of the decisions. And you have to, the thing is, there's certain things you want to set into place when you're dealing with this, where you're making the judge aware, hey, you don't have authority to make decisions here. And you don't want to be rude about it, but there are ways to put that into place so that the judge understands that if that judge is not or trying to make any kind of ruling from the bench, it's illegal, and they can be disbarred. They can be sued. All right. Now, the other thing is a court can have a seal. That is optional. But those are the 5 things: power to fine, jail, or contempt. It keeps a record of the proceedings. The proceedings are according to common law, or whatever law you choose. And codes and ordinances and all that. It's whatever law you choose. The tribunal is independent of the magistrate, and it can have a seal, which is optional. All right, so that's the court of records, and understanding how powerful that is. I want to get into this. This is some advanced, a little bit advanced information as I deal with my clients and I help some other people who are dealing with their legal situation. What we're understanding is, once again, these contracts that we create, they are courts. And so what happens is, when you file on record your court, what you have stated is publicly what your intentions are. All right. Once that's stated, again, now you have the ability to get the sheriff involved, which is the Army. The same thing the corporations have been doing against you with your house, with your car. Okay, so you go and you create your court document. Now, some of us, are going into their courts. But one of the things we're understanding is we don't have to go into their courts. We can create our own courts. One of the things that we're finding is that these people who we call notary publics, they really stand above judges. They stand above judges. And if you're using them with your court documents, and then you simply file that on record, now you have created a document that is a court document. That is a public court document. And now you have the ability to get the sheriff involved in dealing with your situation. How, you know, a lot of us have heard about, you know, the case with, you know, Bank of America, where, you know, someone repoed them. Well, it was the same situation. They had done the private processes on them, and then they went into actually a public court, one of their courts, one of the courts that have been set up, and put it on public record and went over with the sheriff in a U-Haul truck and started moving things. Well, again, he just did the same process that they have been doing to all of us. So once we start following through, once we start following through with our processes, then we're going to start to see remedy. All right. And so that is what we're talking about. Let me make sure that I went over everything, because contract law, like I said, it's dealing, there are certain rules of procedure that we follow, like the 10-day response, offer plus acceptance equal contract. So if you're not responding, you have accepted. Let me say this about contract law as well. With contract law, you know, there's some people who have other procedures where they won't respond. But if you, the deal is, if you are sent a contract, for example, let's say a summons for court, and you sign the little slip that the UPS sends you, then you have accepted that document. Whether you even open it or read it or not, you accepted it. So that's an acceptance. And some people won't even sign it. They'll just say return to sender. And that means that they did not accept it. So that is a response by, you know, not signing for it. For me, you know, I'm a head-on person. So some people have their own, there are different procedures and ways to go about handling these corporations when they come at you. And so with contract law, if you decide that you don't want to accept it, then that's one way of responding and saying, by not signing the document when they send it to you, that's one way of responding and saying, I don't accept. So anybody in your household who's signing for you on a document being sent to you, they're accepting for you. So you have to be aware of that. And remember, with contract law, when you respond, you know, by responding with your own contract, because you can do that. You can say, all right, listen, I don't owe you this, and I'm not going to pay you, blah, 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 whatever else you're putting in your contract or your court. So these all are private processes. When it gets to the public, that means that somebody did not handle their business on the private side. Then we have treaties. Excuse me, not treaties. The next thing we have is the public versus private. All right. So, you know, again, public versus private. If you're not handling your business on the private side, you're gonna find it in the public side, and that means that's not a good deal for you, especially if you are the defendant. All right. If you're dealing with a public process, you want that to be where you are the plaintiff, because that's when you have control. And then steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. Step 1, once again, is the initial contract or the initial court or the initial set of laws. Step 2 is, and they're private. The first one is private. Step 2 is private as well, and that is a notice of fault after the person has acquiesced. Step 3 is a notice of default, and telling the person you need to show up in public court. And step 4 is your public court process. Following through, that's how we get our remedy. Records, once again, the power to fine or jail for contempt. They keep a record of proceedings according to the common law or whatever law you choose. A tribunal is independent of the magistrate, and it can have a seal, but that's optional. All right. So there we go. Contract law. All right. Get your hands on some information. If you have any questions, if I can point you to some other information, let me know. But that's just a brief overview of what it is and what you need to learn and how powerful it can be once you start to implement it into your strategy. Diva Marie, I'm out. Bye.